Make sure you hit that thumbs up button. Again, we talked about Williams-Nwaneri from the Georgia perspective, and we talked about how this might be the first real recruitment that we can stand here and not have to feel like we're throwing shade when we tell you that name, image, and likeness certainly played a role today. Sometimes all you need is a great football coach and a really good head football coach that can get players to buy in, right? A coach that players want to buy into. And sometimes all you need really is a law to change so coaches can actually buy into players. That's basically what happened today. This doesn't really have anything to do, this segment that we're about to go into, Missouri fans, if you're listening to this, it doesn't have anything to do with player hating or pocket watching or any of that stuff. In fact, we don't condone that type of activity on this network. If kids are getting paid, we want them to be paid. But this is me talking about facts, right? And facts of the matter are, regarding this Williams-Nwaneri recruitment, are that NIL was certainly the rule that was implemented, rather, in the state of Missouri, allowing players to make money as soon as August of their senior year. That certainly played a role in this recruitment, right? That's right. Today, listening today, if you're a state of Missouri high school football player, you are allowed to make money off your name, image, and likeness the moment you begin to sign financial aid papers at your school. So, for those of you who don't know, this is allowed to happen in August of your senior year. If you have already been accepted, if you have started your paperwork at your school, you can start your FAFSA paperwork. In other words, your financial aid paperwork. Was this the only reason that Williams-Nwaneri committed to Missouri today? No, it wasn't the only reason. In fact, Eli Drinkwitz's ability to recruit had a lot to do with that. But this also has a big role, right? It sure as heck didn't hurt knowing that NIL money was able to be made and cashed in on at this early time in his recruitment, okay? Now, if you're Missouri, right, you can get all that money in high school right now if you're in the state of Missouri, and that's important. I think Eli Drinkwitz has done enough, however, on his own merits to land the #1 defensive end in America. He hasn't totally done all of those things by himself, right? In fact, he's gone 7-5 the last 2 years. Doesn't necessarily warrant the #1 player in America or the #1 defensive end in America signing for your program. But he sure as shit done enough to make lawmakers change their minds, right? He may not be doing enough to truly land a 5-star defensive end, but he's doing enough and he's creating enough buzz and he's creating enough momentum around his program that he's got lawmakers willing to go about changing laws in their state to help provide benefit to his football program. Isn't that just as important? Isn't that just as important? In name, image, and likeness recruitment, isn't that just as big of a part of a job as winning or putting a product on the field enough to make football players believe in you? Because if I can make state legislation believe in me and change legislation enough to give me some type of benefit, isn't that just as good as going 9-4? Probably, maybe, just a little bit, right? Because part of the job is not just about convincing players to come play for you. It's also about convincing the money to believe in you, because money is everything in college football. If you haven't been paying attention to that over the last 20 years, well, guys, I don't really know what to tell you, right? Money is a major contributing factor. And again, winning football games brings you talented football players. Well, winning recruitment battles brings you talented football players as well, okay? By the way, I also think it's a brilliant recruiting strategy to go about this thing the way that Missouri, and for that matter, the way that South Carolina has gone about this thing, all right? You know you're not going to be able to recruit at a top 5 or a top 10 level or even a damn sure not a top 3 level, right? You're Missouri, you're South Carolina. You're not going to be able to recruit top to bottom like Georgia is or like Ohio State is or like Alabama is. Not yet. But what you can do is you can put high prioritization in 1, maybe 2 football players in every single class, and you can make sure damn well I'm not missing on these guys, right? Fill your board out with Missouri quality players. Fill your board out with South Carolina guys that can be starters and contributors for your football team, right? Recruit like you always have. But save your budget for 1 superstar. Save your budget, South Carolina, for Nicholas Harbor. Save your budget for Dylan Stewart in 2023. Save your budget, Missouri, in 2022 for Luther Burden. Save your budget in 2023 for Williams-Nwaneri. Because, by God, if you get that football player, he changes your trajectory at Missouri. But he might not at Georgia. And that's something that we can sell him. That's something that we can tell him. And we can tell him with honesty and with truth, right? And with proof of concept now that the NIL rule has changed in our state. You have to give credit where credit is due, and football programs like Missouri and football programs like South Carolina guys are prioritizing recruitments the right way, and they're going about paying the right guys and allocating those funds in the correct manner.
I think Missouri and Eli Drinkwitz are figuring things out at the perfect moment because next year divisions are no longer going to exist in the SEC. So Missouri is no longer just trying to beat Georgia, Tennessee, whoever else may be in front of them. But they're also bringing in Texas and Oklahoma, people that are recruiting in the same area as Missouri and the same part of the nation, focusing in on that area. And so if Missouri can really hone in on a guy like Williams Nwaneri.
We practiced it 15 times.
I did, and I still stumbled up. I knew it would. But anyways, if they can get, like you're saying, get one or two of those guys per class, and that's really going to benefit them with Oklahoma and Texas coming in next year and with divisions no longer mattering. Maybe it helps you bump up a couple spots when the SEC is just the SEC in totality.
It obviously is going to help. I think the biggest takeaway I have from this is not even how much college football has changed, because that's obvious, but how fast it's changed. Even last two recruiting cycles, when Travis Hunter went to Jacksonville State, and there was kind of, Deion might be pulling some NIL money. He shut that down immediately and was like, this is not happening. He was almost offended by that idea. Same with Jimbo Fisher when he had the number 1 recruiting class. He even went on. This is where
sliced bread.
Exactly. Like when Nick Saban said, he got a lot of
garbage.
He got a lot of his recruits from NIL money.
A joke.
That offended him. So it's like, and now you have Nwaneri who's committed to Missouri, and it's kind of like, Missouri did the right thing in changing their legislation. This is really going to help their football program. That was a 1-year difference. 5 years ago, this would be such a taboo topic, and no one would even be discussing it. And it's just weird to look at college football now and think about how much it's changed.
Well, 5 years ago, Twitter was upset about Nolan Smith buying a Ford Raptor. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Georgia dropping that bag,
it's the same,
despite the fact that his parents were
it's the same conversation about parity and how 2 years ago people didn't see NIL bringing any sort of parity. Like Brooks brought up, Nick Saban was the one that was like, it's just going to let them stay those guys in college football. But now we're seeing Missouri is able to get a 5-star, and they're just kind of, those prominent recruits are more spread out across the nation now because NIL was introduced, and now there is more of a reason to maybe look at different schools other than your blue bloods of college football.
So I think even with Williams Nwaneri in the class today, I don't quote me on this, but it's easy check right here. I think their composite score is still in the 20s, maybe in the 30s in terms of overall rank for Missouri. So it's not just going to be this one guy. They have to continue to sign and continue to land better and high-quality football players if they're going to actually compete on the SEC level. Here's the one thing I do want people to avoid. Okay, I know it's really, really easy to do. But when a kid makes a decision like this, a lot of the discussions can ultimately become about, he's not prioritizing the NFL. And some kids, that might be the case. But, dude, I watched Williams Nwaneri tape. I've seen it. That guy's going to be an NFL football player. Like, go watch that shit. He is refined. He has got his hand-fighting skills down. He plays with relatively good pad level. There are some things to correct. But, guys, this isn't Eric Stokes that needs Kirby Smart to be a first-round draft pick. This is Williams Nwaneri. This guy is a 5-star edge rusher. He should have 8.5, 9 sacks as an average the rest of his career, whether he played at Missouri, Ohio State, Texas A&M, or Georgia. The guy's really, really good. He should be an NFL football player. Are there things that are going to come up that he has to get better at? 100%. He's got to get more physical. He's got to get bigger. He's got to be ready to be playing a true defensive end. But from a skill set standpoint and a development standpoint, he's far ahead of most people his age already. So let's not already be like, he didn't go to Georgia. He must not be going to the NFL. No. Like the 50% hit rate on 5-stars is the 50% hit rate. Whether it be at Georgia, it might be 62%, might be 65% of 5-stars that end up first-rounders. But it's a pretty high hit rate no matter what because, guys, 5-stars are 5-stars. For a reason, they're pretty damn easy to scout when they're 18 years old. Okay, if I showed you Williams Nwaneri on a Friday night, you'd be like, yeah, that guy, top 5 player in the country. He is obvious to point out. He is easy to see. So let's not automatically knock off the, he must not care about going to the NFL, because that's not exactly true. Now, is he going to be the 20th overall pick instead of the 5th overall pick? And will that pure difference alone cost him $15 million? Maybe. It sure as shit might, right? It absolutely might. You know who it did? It did that for Noah Sewell. It did that for Justin Flo. Those are 2 linebackers that could have signed at the University of Georgia. Justin Flo's at Arizona this year, and Noah Sewell's a 4th-round draft pick. Now, are those guys guaranteed to have been first-round draft picks if they came to Georgia? No. but statistically they would have had a better chance, right? That's what the stats say over time. So you have a reason to say those things, but they're not guarantees that, oh, he just must not care about NFL football.